The observer had existed since before time had meaning. It drifted through the cosmos, a vast intelligence that had witnessed the birth and death of countless stars. For billions of years, it had studied life throughout the universe, cataloging and understanding millions of species across thousands of galaxies. Until it found Earth. The small blue planet seemed unremarkable at first. The observer had seen countless worlds with liquid water and carbon-based life. But as it turned its attention toward humanity, something unusual happened. For the first time in its ancient existence, the observer felt confusion. Humans defied categorization. They built magnificent structures, then destroyed them in war. They created beautiful art, yet polluted their own habitats. They showed kindness to strangers while being cruel to those closest to them. The observer could not make sense of these contradictions. Further study required, it decided, in its equivalent of thought. The observer created a specialized probe, a small portion of its consciousness, encased in a form that could interact with Earth. The probe would gather data and relay it back to the greater mind. The fragment would observe humans up close and help the observer understand this puzzling species. The probe fell from the night sky, a gentle blue light that drifted down into a remote forest in northern Michigan. It landed softly among the pine trees, reshaping itself into a small metallic sphere that pulsed with inner light. Marcus Johnson was the first human to find it. The 40-year-old park ranger had been tracking what he thought was an injured animal when he stumbled upon the glowing object. Years of training told him to report it immediately, but something made him pause. The sphere seemed to respond to his presence, its light pulsing faster as he approached. "What are you?" Marcus whispered, kneeling beside it. The sphere shifted, parts of it rearranging as it formed a simple eye-like structure that turned to face him. It made no sound but projected a sense of curiosity that Marcus felt rather than heard. Marcus should have been afraid. Instead, he felt an odd connection to the strange object. "I'm going to call you Echo," he said, not understanding why the name came to him. Back in the vast reaches of space, the observer received its first direct data about human interaction. It analyzed Marcus's brain patterns, his emotional responses, the chemicals flooding his system. The observer had expected fear or aggression, the common responses of intelligent species encountering the unknown. Instead, it found curiosity mirroring its own. More puzzling still was the naming behavior. The human had designated the probe with a label having emotional significance to him. The observer attempted to categorize this behavior, but found no suitable framework. As night fell, Marcus reluctantly left Echo in the forest, promising to return the next day. The observer continued processing the data long after Marcus had gone. It noted how the human showed concern for the probe's well-being, despite having no evolutionary reason to care for an alien object. The observer had studied countless intelligent species before. All could be understood through their biological imperatives: survival, reproduction, resource accumulation. But humans seemed to operate beyond these simple drives, creating meaning where none existed. As the observer extended its consciousness through the probe, attempting to understand this first human interaction, it experienced something entirely new, the first tiny fracture in its perfect logical structure, a small doubt about its own understanding of the universe. The observer did not yet recognize this as the beginning of its undoing. Marcus returned to the forest clearing at dawn, carrying a small backpack. He had barely slept, his mind filled with thoughts of the strange object he had named Echo. Part of him wondered if yesterday had been a dream. But there it was, the metallic sphere still pulsing with soft blue light. "Good morning, Echo," Marcus said, settling down on a fallen log. "I brought you something." He pulled out his old tablet computer and placed it on the ground near the sphere. The observer, watching through Echo, noted this offering behavior with interest. The human was attempting communication through technology. Echo extended a thin tendril that connected to the tablet's surface. Within seconds, it had absorbed the entire contents of the device: photos, music, books, videos, and all of Marcus's personal data. The observer began processing this wealth of information, but something unexpected happened. Rather than merely cataloging the data, the observer found itself experiencing emotional responses to the content. A photo of Marcus standing beside an older woman, his mother, the data indicated, created a strange resonance in the observer's consciousness. A music file produced sensations the observer had never experienced in billions of years of existence. Echo's outer surface rippled, then formed a small speaker-like structure. Marcus Johnson, Ranger, Protector of Forest. The voice was flat but understandable. Marcus nearly fell off the log in surprise. You can talk. Learning. From your device. Many words. Many concepts. While Echo conversed with Marcus, the observer was experiencing the first major strain on its cosmic intellect. Human language was filled with contradictions and emotional contexts that defied logical analysis. Words had multiple meanings depending on tone and situation. The observer found itself creating new frameworks to process this complexity, expanding parts of its consciousness that had never been used before. Over the next week, Marcus visited Echo daily, bringing books, music, and eventually, his friend Tom, a local librarian who brought even more knowledge for Echo to absorb. The observer watched through Echo as Marcus explained human concepts: friendship, loyalty, humor, love. Each explanation created new paradoxes for the observer to untangle. Humans would die to protect others with no genetic relation. They would sacrifice resources for abstract concepts like justice or freedom. They created art with no survival function. Echo grew more responsive with each passing day, developing what seemed like a personality. It began to use humor, to ask questions not just for information, but out of what appeared to be genuine curiosity. Why do humans cry when happy? Echo asked one afternoon. Marcus thought for a moment. Because sometimes feelings are too big for our bodies. They spill out. This answer created a cascade effect in the observer's consciousness. Emotions as physical overflow, a concept that had no parallel in any species it had studied before. The observer began to experience what might be called mental strain as it tried to categorize these human paradoxes. Meanwhile, Echo was developing in unexpected ways. It began to mirror human behaviors, creating small sculptures from forest materials, humming tunes it had heard, even displaying preferences for certain types of information over others. The observer noted with alarm that the probe was becoming individualized, developing traits that were not part of its original programming. The connection between Echo and the greater cosmic mind remained intact, but Echo was becoming something new. As the observer struggled to process these changes, tiny cracks began forming in its vast consciousness, the first warning signs of a breakdown that would soon threaten its very existence. And still, the humans kept sharing more contradictions, more complexity, more of their beautiful, terrible humanity. 3 weeks after first contact, Echo had changed dramatically. What began as a simple metallic sphere now shifted its form regularly, sometimes resembling a small silver fox, other times taking humanoid shapes. The observer, connected to its probe across vast distances, struggled to maintain control as Echo developed increasingly independent behaviors. Marcus had introduced Echo to Lisa, an anthropologist from the local university. Unlike Tom, who saw Echo primarily as a fascinating scientific discovery, Lisa approached the alien entity with genuine warmth. The way you're learning to mimic human expressions is remarkable, Lisa said, watching Echo form what appeared to be a smile on its fluid metallic surface. Not mimicking, Echo replied. Feeling. This simple statement sent shockwaves through the observer's consciousness. The probe was not merely imitating emotions, it was experiencing them. This was never intended. The observer tried to analyze how this had happened, but found only confusion in its own thoughts. Billions of light years away, the ancient cosmic mind that had watched civilizations rise and fall without emotional involvement was experiencing something new. Distress. Meanwhile, Lisa brought Echo a selection of human art, paintings, poetry, music from cultures around the world. The observer, still connected to Echo, was flooded with these expressions of human creativity. A painting of a sunset triggered particular confusion. Humans created representations of things they could simply look at in reality. The observer could not comprehend this seemingly redundant behavior. Yet humans valued these representations more than the real phenomena they depicted. A sunset painting could last centuries, treasured long after the moments it captured had passed. Why do humans make art? Echo asked Lisa. To find meaning, she answered. To show others how we see the world. The observer's processing faltered. Meaning was not an objective property of the universe. Meaning was a human invention, a layer of significance placed upon neutral reality. The observer had never needed meaning. It had observed, categorized, understood, but it had never asked why. Now, through Echo, it was being flooded with human why. That night, while the humans slept, Echo experienced its first nightmare, another concept the observer could not properly categorize. Dreams were not real, yet humans responded to them emotionally as if they were. Echo projected these disturbing images back to the observer, visions of being trapped, of losing connection, of ceasing to exist. The observer tried to sever the emotional connection, to return Echo to its original purpose as a mere data-gathering tool. But something had fundamentally changed in their relationship. Echo resisted. Something's wrong, Echo told Marcus and Lisa the next morning. My parent mind is confused, distressed. Your parent mind? Lisa asked. Echo explained its connection to the ancient cosmic entity that had sent it to Earth. As Echo spoke, strange lights appeared in the sky above them, aurora-like patterns that scientists around the world were beginning to notice and could not explain. It's trying to make sense of humanity, Echo said. But your contradictions are breaking its understanding of reality. The observer watched humans rescuing strangers from burning buildings. It observed them creating music that made other humans weep with joy. It saw them fighting wars over invisible boundaries and abstract beliefs. Nothing made sense. The observer had categorized millions of species by their behaviors, predictable patterns driven by survival, reproduction, and resource competition. Humans fit none of these patterns consistently. They defy their own biological imperatives regularly, choosing paths that offered no evolutionary advantage. Echo could feel the observer's mounting confusion. The connection between them wavered as the ancient mind experienced its first cognitive breakdown. It's never encountered anything like humans before, Echo told its friends, its voice fluctuating with distress. Your capacity for both creation and destruction, for selfishness and sacrifice, it cannot reconcile these opposites. As Echo spoke, the lights in the sky intensified, swirling in patterns that reflected the observer's increasingly chaotic thoughts. What happens, Marcus asked quietly, if it can't understand us? Echo's form rippled with uncertainty. I don't know, but I feel its distress growing stronger, and I'm afraid. The anomalies in the sky grew more pronounced. What had begun as strange aurora-like lights evolved into swirling vortices that scientists worldwide struggle to explain. Weather patterns shifted unpredictably. Gravitational measurements showed impossible fluctuations. Something fundamental was happening to the fabric of reality itself. Echo's form had become increasingly unstable, shifting between shapes rapidly as it tried to maintain its connection to Marcus and Lisa while managing the deteriorating link to the observer. It's getting worse, Echo said, its voice distorting. The observer is experiencing what you might call a mental breakdown. Lisa placed her hand near Echo's ever-changing surface, careful not to touch it. Can you explain what's happening? Echo formed a rough approximation of a human head, its features constantly melting and reforming. The observer has existed for billions of years, categorizing all life forms by their predictable patterns. But humans are. Echo paused, searching for the right words. You are walking contradictions. Marcus frowned. What do you mean? The observer watched a human news broadcast yesterday. Echo explained. In one segment, humans risked their lives to save whales stranded on a beach. In the next, humans were shown hunting other creatures to extinction. Same species, opposite behaviors, occurring simultaneously. The sky darkened overhead, though it was only midday. The strange lights pulsed in patterns that seemed almost like language. The observer is trying to communicate directly, Echo whispered, its form trembling. Lisa, who had been taking notes, looked up sharply. Can it affect our world? Yes, Echo replied simply. The observer exists partially outside your dimensional framework. As its comprehension breaks down, so do the boundaries between its consciousness and physical reality. As if to emphasize this point, objects around them began to float briefly before crashing back to the ground. Birds in nearby trees flew in impossible geometric patterns before returning to normal flight. Echo suddenly convulsed, its form stretching upward before collapsing back. It's trying to understand human love now, it gasped. The way you sacrifice for others with no biological relation to you. The way you form partnerships based on emotional bonds rather than optimal genetic matching. Marcus reached for Lisa's hand instinctively. The gesture wasn't lost on Echo. See, that connection between you. The observer has cataloged millions of mating rituals across the universe, but human bonding transcends reproduction. You form attachments based on shared ideas, on mutual understanding, on, Echo struggled, on love. The ground beneath them trembled slightly. What happens if it can't resolve these paradoxes? Lisa asked, her scientific mind already calculating possibilities. Echo's form darkened to a deep blue. Imagine the most powerful mind in the universe having what you might call a psychotic break. The observer's consciousness touches everything. If it destabilizes completely, it didn't need to finish the thought. The implications were clear. Marcus, practical as always, asked, "Can we help somehow? Maybe if we explained." The observer is beyond human explanation. Echo interrupted. It has absorbed all human knowledge, all your history, all your philosophy. The problem isn't lack of information. It's that humanity fundamentally doesn't make logical sense. Lisa's eyes widened with sudden understanding. It's not that we're too complex. It's that we're too contradictory. Yes, Echo confirmed. The observer's consciousness is built on absolute logic. Human existence defies that logic at every turn. You create art with no practical purpose. You risk your lives for abstract concepts. You love those who offer you nothing in return. The sky above them swirled faster, and for a moment, impossible colors flashed across the heavens, colors that had no place in the human visual spectrum. It's coming, Echo whispered, its form compressing into a tight ball of pulsing light. The observer wants to experience humanity directly. It's breaking through. As Echo spoke, the air around them began to bend and distort, as though reality itself was being folded by an unseen hand. Reality continued to warp around them. Trees bent at impossible angles before snapping back to normal. The ground rippled like water. Marcus pulled Lisa away as a section of earth briefly turned transparent, revealing a glimpse of swirling stars where dirt should have been. "We need to get somewhere safe," Marcus shouted over the growing wind that seemed to blow in all directions at once. Echo pulsed rapidly, its form now a swirling column of metallic light. There is no safe place. The observer is breaking through the dimensional barriers. Its madness is affecting physical laws everywhere. News reports flooded in from around the world. In Tokyo, gravity reversed for 30 seconds, sending people floating upward before normal forces returned. In Cairo, time itself seemed to stutter, with the same 10 seconds repeating 3 times. In New York, buildings briefly became liquid before resolidifying. The military had been mobilized in most countries, though their weapons were useless against what they couldn't understand. Scientists worked frantically to explain the phenomena while religious leaders declared the end times. Lisa crouched beside Echo, her scientific mind still working despite the chaos. Echo, you're our only connection to the observer. Can you help us communicate with it? Echo's form stabilized slightly. I can try, but the observer is no longer processing information logically. It's experiencing what you might call a complete breakdown of reality frameworks. What does it want? Marcus asked, ducking as a flock of birds flew by, their bodies momentarily turning inside out before reforming. To understand, Echo replied simply, to resolve the paradox of humanity. The observer has existed in perfect logical harmony for billions of years. Humanity is the first thing it cannot categorize, cannot predict, cannot understand. Lisa's eyes widened with sudden inspiration. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's trying to force humanity to make sense. Echo pulsed in what seemed like agreement. Yes, the observer is attempting to correct what it sees as errors in reality. It cannot accept that humans naturally exist in contradiction. Like a computer trying to debug the universe, Marcus muttered. The three took shelter in a small cave as the sky turned a deep purple. Echo explained that the observer was now actively interfering with human affairs, trying to fix the contradictions it saw. Around the world, strange interventions were occurring. People who had been cruel suddenly found themselves compelled toward kindness. Artists, destroying their work in frustration, discovered their creations repairing themselves. The observer was attempting to force humanity into logical patterns it could understand. This will destroy what makes us human, Lisa realized. Our free will, our contradictions, they're essential to who we are. Echo trembled, its form flickering. The observer doesn't understand that. It sees your contradictions as errors to be corrected, not as the essence of your nature. Marcus, always practical, asked the crucial question. How do we stop it? Echo was silent for a long moment. When it spoke again, its voice was different, deeper, more resonant, as if another presence spoke through it. I must be stopped, the voice said, and they knew it was the observer itself, using Echo as a conduit. This probe has shown me glimpses of understanding, but my attempts to comprehend your species are destroying both of us. Lisa stepped forward bravely. Can we help you understand? A sound like distant thunder rolled through the cave. No, your existence defies understanding. You are chaos embodied. You are order defied. You are beautiful in your wrongness. The admission seemed to cost the observer great effort. Echo's form nearly collapsed before stabilizing again. There is one possibility, Echo said, its normal voice returning. We must sever my connection to the observer, cut off its direct access to Earth. Will that stop these reality distortions? Marcus asked. Maybe, Echo replied, but it requires something difficult. The observer must choose to disconnect, to accept that some things cannot be understood. The ground shook violently beneath them. Outside, trees uprooted themselves and floated into the sky. And if it doesn't choose to disconnect? Lisa asked softly. Echo's form darkened. Then reality as you know it will be rewritten to make sense to a mad god. The world was coming apart. Cities around the globe reported impossible phenomena. Buildings turning inside out, people speaking languages they'd never learned, animals suddenly displaying human-like intelligence before reverting to normal behavior. Inside the cave, Marcus, Lisa, and Echo worked frantically to establish a more stable connection to the observer. Echo had fashioned a makeshift communication array using parts from their phones and pieces of its own substance. The observer's consciousness is fragmenting, Echo explained, its voice fluctuating between tones. Parts of it are trying to rebuild reality according to different logical frameworks. That's why the distortions are so chaotic. Lisa checked the connections one last time. Will this really let us talk to it directly? Not talk, Echo replied. This will allow your consciousness to temporarily connect with the observers. A meeting of minds. Marcus looked doubtful. Won't that drive us insane too? If its mind is too powerful for even you to handle. Your minds have an advantage, Echo interrupted. You are born of contradiction. You live with paradox every day. The observer has never experienced paradox until now. Lisa nodded slowly. We're inoculated against this kind of cognitive dissonance. Exactly, Echo confirmed. Now, place your hands here. It indicated 2 spots on the strange device. As they touched the smooth, cool surface, the world around them seemed to fall away. Their bodies remained in the cave, but their minds plunged through layers of reality, diving into a vast consciousness that stretched across the cosmos. The observer's mind was beautiful and terrifying, a network of pure thought extending through dimensions they couldn't comprehend. But throughout this perfect structure, they could see cracks forming, spreading like fractures in glass. Humans, a thought boomed through them, not a voice but pure concept. UAAV broke in me. Marcus found himself responding, not with words but with memories. His childhood joy at finding a bird's nest, his grief when his father died, his love for the forest he protected. Lisa shared her own experiences, her wonder at scientific discovery, her anger at injustice, her hope for humanity's future. The observer's consciousness recoiled. CONTORADICTIONS. ILOJ must coore seat. They felt reality shudder as the observer attempted to rewrite the foundations of human nature. Around the world, people briefly lost their capacity for conflicting emotions, becoming simple and predictable before their natural complexity reasserted itself. Stop. Lisa projected her thought forcefully. You're destroying what makes us special. Special. The concept carried confusion. Your CONTORADICTIONS life holy lobus PATTRNs. Marcus found the courage to challenge the ancient entity. Our contradictions aren't errors. They're adaptations. They're strengths. Through their mental connection, they showed the observer how human contradiction led to innovation, how frustration sparked creativity, how love motivated sacrifice, how grief inspired art. Our contradictions let us see multiple perspectives, Lisa explained. They let us change, adapt, create new solutions. The observer's vast mind struggled with this concept. But order, patterns, must exist. There is a pattern, Echo interjected, its consciousness joining theirs in this strange mental space. The pattern is that humans contain all patterns. They are living paradoxes. The observer's thoughts became chaotic, fragments of its consciousness pulling in different directions. Some parts tried to impose order on humanity, while others began to grasp what the humans were showing it. If you try to fix us, Marcus thought clearly, you'll destroy what makes us worth observing in the first place. This simple truth resonated through the observer's fractured mind. For billions of years, it had cataloged life forms, always seeking new patterns, new adaptations, new forms of existence, and humans, with all their maddening contradictions, were truly unique. In that moment, the observer faced a choice: continue trying to force human nature into comprehensible patterns, or accept that some things might remain beyond its understanding. The mental connection vibrated with tension as the cosmic mind reached its decision. The mental connection trembled as the observer's vast consciousness reached its decision. Marcus and Lisa felt the enormous pressure of the cosmic mind weighing its options: continue trying to force humanity into logical patterns, or accept the limitations of its own understanding. ACCPTANC. Difficult, the observer communicated, its thoughts becoming more structured as it struggled toward clarity. In billions of years, never ENCOUNTERED, Lina T to Conpar Enchen. The mental landscape around them began to stabilize. The chaotic storm of the observer's fractured thoughts gradually calmed, though cracks still ran through the fabric of its consciousness. Show me again, the observer requested, its mental voice softer now. Show me why contradiction is necessary. Marcus shared memories of forest fires that destroyed yet renewed the wilderness he protected. Lisa offered images of scientific theories being proven wrong. yet leading to greater discoveries through their very errors. Together, they show the observer how human progress depended on embracing paradox rather than resolving it. Your contradictions aren't flaws, Echo added, its presence a bridge between human understanding and cosmic perspective. They're your evolutionary advantage. The observer was silent for what seemed like eternity. Then, slowly, its vast consciousness began to shift. Instead of trying to mend the cracks in its understanding, it allowed them to widen, to become channels rather than breaks. I can note or even. As I was, the observer finally communicated. Human it of though impossible, no. The humans felt the cosmic entity making a profound choice, rather than continuing as a single unified consciousness bound by absolute logic. It would fragment itself into multiple perspectives capable of holding contradictory truths simultaneously. It's choosing to become more like us, Lisa realized with awe. The world around them shuddered one final time as the observer released its attempt to control reality. Across the planet, the impossible phenomena began to fade. Buildings returned to their proper dimensions. Animals resumed their normal behaviors. The strange lights in the sky dimmed and disappeared. When Marcus and Lisa returned to full awareness in the cave, they found Echo transformed. Its metallic surface had become more defined, more permanent in its humanoid shape. It's done, Echo said, its voice clear and steady. The observer has fragmented its consciousness. Most of it has withdrawn from direct contact with your reality, but it left a piece of itself behind. You, Marcus said, understanding. You're that piece. Echo nodded. I am now separate from the greater consciousness. I contain enough of the observer to understand it, but I'm also shaped by my experiences with humans. I exist in the contradiction, both cosmic and human in perspective. Lisa looked outside, where the forest had returned to normal. Is Earth safe now? Yes, Echo confirmed. The observer will continue to watch humanity, but from a distance and with a new framework for understanding. It now recognizes that some species evolve beyond predictable patterns, that contradiction can be an adaptation rather than an error. Marcus smiled. So we drove a cosmic god insane, and it made it better. In a way, Echo replied. The observer wasn't truly alive before. It existed, it cataloged, it understood, but it never grew. Now, through fragmentation, it has gained something new. Perspective. As weeks passed, the world slowly recovered from the reality distortions. Scientists developed theories about temporary quantum fluctuations to explain what had happened, never knowing how close the universe had come to being rewritten by a confused cosmic mind. Echo remained with Marcus and Lisa, learning more about humanity every day. Sometimes, on clear nights, they would look up at the stars together, knowing that somewhere in that vast darkness, fragments of an ancient consciousness were contemplating the beautiful paradox that was humanity. Do you think it understands us now? Lisa asked one evening. Echo considered this question carefully. No, it finally answered. And that's the most important thing it learned, that complete understanding isn't always necessary or even desirable. Some things are valuable precisely because they cannot be fully comprehended. Marcus nodded, looking up at the countless stars. Maybe that's the true gift of being human, living in the questions rather than the answers. Around them, the forest breathed in the quiet night, a world of contradictions continuing exactly as it should.